Welcome back. This is Bonita Creek RC, and today we're going to be working on my SCX24 C10. The power delivery is pretty weak on it. It just doesn't have any torque because it has a Mofo buzzsaw motor. So that's a pretty high RPM motor. It's really fast, but it does not have much low-end torque. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put underdrive in the front and rear. I got 33% underdrive to put in the rear axle, and I got 11% underdrive to put in the front, and that'll give us 22% net overdrive. Also give it some more gear reduction, which should help. But we're going to see how much this actually helps. So we're going to go hit the rocks, and I'm just going to show you just how gutless this thing is. Then come put some underdrive in it, and we'll see how much better the torque is. I did that to my AX24, and I have a Mofo RC Torque Beast 3.0 in it, and I have the 11% underdrive in the front and the 33% underdrive in the rear, and that 22% range, like between 20 and 25%, is like the ideal amount of overdrive for most applications. So much more than that, then it just gets to be too much, and less than that is not really noticeable. Like right now this truck has 14% overdrive, and it does help some, but not much. So it's also going to perform better, and it's going to have a tighter turning radius just because it's going to have a decent amount of overdrive now. So I'm excited for this, and this is not a very expensive modification. Overdrive helps a lot, and it's not very expensive. I think each diff was like $8 or something. Pretty easy to do also. But I think I'll show you how to do one of them, and probably just show how to do the front, and the rear is easier. So, alright, let's go hit the rocks. Alright, out on the course, let's see how this does. I'm trying to take it slow. Well, I did a lot better than it normally does. It just rained, so the rocks don't have any dust on them. Well, line that up right. Okay, I'm gonna have my finger over here and just show you how much throttle I have to do. It takes a lot of practice to be able to control this truck pretty well. It just takes a lot of throttle modulation with your finger, and yeah, you just have to give it a lot of throttle, and then it'll get over the obstacle. But then once it's over, you're almost at full throttle, and then it just launches. So it's just not very easy to drive. So let's see, I'm going to go over here, and okay, I had it on medium actually on the remote. So on low, I'll show you, it's good, probably going to stop. See, look, it just stalled. No torque. So I put it up on the medium, and there it had enough torque. So it's just difficult to drive, and it doesn't look very and it's not very smooth driving it. So it's not going to have the top speed it used to have, of course, but I want to see just how much a little more gear reduction can do for it. So I'll show you the top speed too. Okay, and here's the top speed. So it's pretty fast. So that was all with the remote set to high on here. Okay, we'll just go and put the underdrive in and we'll see how much better it is. Alright, I got the body and the tires out of the way so we can get to it easier. So first we'll take off the steering knuckles because we have to get the hubs off so we can pull out the axle shafts to get to the diff gear. Okay, got the steering knuckles off. I'm just going to undo the steering link here, and that way this isn't just hanging in the way. And then I'm going to clean the axle a bit because we don't want dirt getting in there. Okay, got the front axle cleaned up a bit, and now I'm going to take off the servo mount. That way the axle will be able to pivot forward, and then we can get the drive shaft off because it's pretty much fully collapsed just at ride height. I won't be able to pull the drive shaft off without doing that. Okay, now I'll just leave the servo attached to the upper front links, and that way the axle can tip forward and I'll be able to pull off the drive shaft. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is pull off the diff cover, and then we're going to pull out the axle shafts, and then that way we can pull out the diff. Okay, got the front diff cover off, and now you can see the diff. Well, the lighting's probably pretty bad for you there, but it looks like it's been running kind of dry. The grease is kind of dried up and it's just stuck to the sides and not really on the gears. So we'll also throw some fresh grease in there. Okay, now pull out this gear. And this is a Enduro 14% overdrive. So I'm going to find a bag to put this in. And pull out the worm gear. I really like the worm gear design on the SCX24s. Well, it gives you good drag brake, it won't roll on its own, and it gives you a lot of gear reduction at the axle, and you don't get as much torque twist as you would like on a TRX 4M, or the Cent 18s aren't too bad because they have portals. I just like the worm gear design. Okay, here we got the 11% underdrive. Yeah, this is a 218 and this is a 112. So what that means is that the worm gear, well, there's 12 teeth on the regular gear, and then there's one spiral going around the worm gear. And on this one, it has an 18 tooth regular gear, and it has two spirals going around the worm gear. So with the two spirals, it's going to spin this gear a lot faster. These come with some O-rings to put on the shafts on the worm gear. That keeps the worm gear from sliding back and forth inside. And it also kind of seals it up, so we'll be putting those on. One problem that the stock worm gears have is that they'll just eat up the O-rings, and then the whole thing will slide back and forth. And the rear one on this truck actually does that. So it'll be good to get rid of that because it lets some grease by through the bearing there around the worm gears. So that'll be good to get that fixed. Okay, I got the worm gear all covered in grease and slid it in there, and I'm going to put a little grease on this gear and then put that in, and then I'll slide the axle shafts back in, and then we can just put it all back together again. Okay, I got that installed, and it's kind of tricky to get the axle shafts put back in because they have to line up with that gear. So I just kind of turn it a bit until it slides in. That one just went in, and the gear won't be perfectly lined up with the bearings and the axle shafts, so sometimes you have to move that gear around a bit, but it was pretty close to where it's supposed to be, and that first one just went in pretty easy. So now I just got to spin this other one until it goes in. It's not really wanting to. Okay, got them in, and I'm just going to throw in a little more grease around those bearings. I like to put in enough grease that it's constantly throwing it around inside, and I don't want it to just get like stuck on the sides of the diff housing and then not touch the gears, and then the gears be running dry. So this probably isn't the right kind of grease. I'm just getting it out of a little grease gun that we have for our cars when we have to do grease on some steering linkage or something, or ball joint. But I'm just gonna put a little on there. It's pretty sticky. This grease is also kind of old, so it's probably not the best for this, but it's what I have, and it's better than nothing. Okay, I think I got enough grease in there, so I'll just throw the diff cover back on, and it goes back together pretty much the same as it went apart, so I'm not going to show you that. And then I'll just do the rear axle, and then we'll go see how it does. One thing that you do have to check when you're putting it back together is that your drive shaft is synced. See, like there, it's out of sync, so I'm going to jump it over a tooth, and now this yoke is lined up with that one, and it will spin smoothly. Otherwise, it'll kind of cog a bit. If you don't line it up, it'll kind of lurch a bit, and it won't spin smoothly when it's at a greater angle. So just make sure that you get those lined up, and getting this back together is kind of tricky, so let's get that done. All right, I got it all put back together, got the rear diff in, and now let's see if it's more controllable. Keeps wanting to tip up right there. Don't know why. I still need to do some more tuning on the suspension. It's pretty unstable right now. There we go, got past that one point. It does have more torque, and it doesn't stall as easily, but it's still kind of lurchy, and it having more overdrive kind of takes more power, but it does move a lot easier. So this did help it quite a lot, and it'll be good. It'll be a good upgrade anyway. I think the next thing I'm going to do is put a brushless system in it, and that should fix most of the problems it has. Let's see how it does going up this. It's honestly pretty good. Oh, it started to lift a little bit there. It has some torque now, but it's still kind of abrupt when it wants to go. So I caught the rear axle there. Got it. So it does have more torque, especially when it's the rear that's mostly loaded up and the front doesn't have as much weight on it, and the front tires can spin more easily. But there's sometimes when the overdrive is fighting it, and it makes it not feel like it has as much torque. But when most of the weight is on the rear, it's pretty strong. It really has some pretty good torque. Now it's just hopping. One of the other things I'm going to do is put some silicone inserts in these tires. Probably some Injora yellow 57mm inserts, and get rid of the dual stage foams in these tires because they're too stiff and they're overstuffed. And this truck needs more unsprung weight. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is a brushless system, and then I'm going to put in some inserts, because inserts were just out of the question when is having that much problem with not having enough power. So it could barely move around with these wheels, and if I just put silicone inserts in there, it would just be unusable. I don't know, maybe I could put some silicone inserts in there now, but I'm not even just gonna do a brushless system because that's a lot cooler. Well, that's on medium. See, I had that all the way down. Oh, the battery's dying on it. That means it was down on powered when we were just testing it here. And so with a fresh battery, it'll feel even better for the power delivery. And here's the top speed with the underdrive. So putting in the underdrive did help it a lot. And it's one of my favorite things to do to the SCX24 is just put that 33% underdrive in the rear and that 11% underdrive in the front. So I feel like they don't have quite enough gear reduction for how small even a 50 size motor is. I want to thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like what you see, and we'll see you in the next one.